It's Monday, July 22. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. In his contribution to the 2019-2020 sectoral debate in the House of Representatives, Minister with a portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Daryl Vaz, said approximately 1,000 tires are deposited at the Riverton City landfill each day. He also disclosed that a pilot project would be implemented to dispose of the tires in an environmentally friendly and sustainable manner. Carib Cement has been selected by the government to remove and dispose of reportedly over 1 million old tires at the Riverton City landfill in Kingston. Carib Cement will reportedly use its kiln located at Rockfort in Kingston to dispose of the tires. The MOU between the government of Jamaica and Carib Cement to remove the tires from the Riverton landfill was signed this morning.
And the challenge with tires, of course, is that when they burn for a long period of time, and they're not easy to contain once they have started to burn. And so you would have heard as well that when they burn in uncontrolled circumstances at relatively low temperatures, they release all kinds of toxins into the air. So the best solution to them, which is now being practiced worldwide, is to have them incinerated in a managed process in a kiln.
I am confident that we start a trial today that, when proved successful, will help us continue and eliminating the tires of Riverton City between 3 and 5 years. So after this trial period, once we move to the full project, we'll be able to eliminate all tires in Riverton between 3 and 5 years. We are committed to the success of this project because it's good to the environment, the health, and the safety of Jamaicans. This partnership has the potential to become another good example of a joint solution between the government and the private sector that I encourage that we continue focusing. Our parent company, the Cemex Group, is currently one of the worldwide leaders in the use of alternative fuels for cement production. Cemex strongly commits to migrate to cleaner energy sources and to displace traditional fuels like coal or others for low or even zero carbon alternatives, such as municipal solid waste, tires, and biomass. By this project, Jamaica joins other Cemex operations like Poland, Latvia, Czech Republic, Germany, and the US, where successful partnerships have resulted in the conversion of more than 900,000 tons of solid waste in 2017. In 2017, 26% of Cemex fuels worldwide were coming from alternative fuels. In Jamaica, we managed to go between 4 and 8%. And with this entire project, we'll continue reducing fossil fuels and replacing them with alternative fuels.
Jamaica has moved a step closer in further diversifying its energy mix with the official commissioning of the Floating Storage Regasification Terminal, FSRT. It will supply liquefied natural gas, LNG, to Jamaica. Prime Minister Andrew Holness officially commissioned the facility into service during a ceremony on the Golar Freeze barge docked in Old Harbour. The historic undertaking is the first of its kind in Jamaica and the region.
We are on track to achieve an ambitious goal, which is to have at least 50% of our electricity generation from renewables or cleaner fuels. And as Minister Williams has said, that we are almost there to be at 44% when we complete Old Harbour. And that is a major, significant achievement. The completion of the terminal will firmly establish the island as a premier LNG hub. It is the first of its kind in the Caribbean and will supply the 190 megawatt Old Harbour power plant through natural gas pipelines.
The project was undertaken by the US-based New Fortress Energy.
Over the past decade, LNG has been approximately 30% cheaper than diesel. And the projections are that it will continue to be cheaper than the distillate fuels.
The Kingston Harbour is the 7th largest natural deepwater harbour in the world. The Kingston waterfront has an industrial belt comprised of highly valuable shipping, port, commercial, real estate, recreational, residential and fisheries activities. It's ranked as the 7th busiest port in the Americas and the busiest city port in the Caribbean. It's also increasingly known for a high level of pollution. There is an urgent need for a redevelopment plan for the Kingston Harbour, given the amount of pollutants entering the harbour from industrial and commercial activities. Marlon Samuels has more in this report.
Recognizing the need for a development plan for the Kingston Harbour, the Mona J. Informatics Institute embarked on a study to assess the impact of garbage flowing into the harbour from land-based sources such as harbourside communities. A 3D tool called hydrodynamic modeling was used.
So hydrodynamic modeling allows us to really bring in a four-dimensional approach to the Kingston Harbour, to test scenarios and possibilities as well as the realities that exist out there right now. Because anything that is going to be looking at cruise shipping in the harbour is going to have to look at everything in the harbour. The downtown Kingston redevelopment project is going to require a look at everything. The Port of Kingston, public health concerns about the quality of water in Kingston Harbour. And then ultimately, the incorporation of hydrodynamic principles allows us to go all the way inland to the source of what's happening in Kingston Harbour. The coastline around Kingston Harbour is not the end of the Kingston Harbour. Kingston Harbour extends many, many kilometers inland. And ultimately, it is these areas that feed the Kingston Harbour, for better or for worse. And people living in the hills of St. Andrew are effectively harbour side because there literally is a straight line between them and the Kingston Harbour, and that's called a gully.
15 gullies or rivers are incorporated into the model. It confirmed that a lot of the garbage which ends up in the Kingston Harbour get there through complex gully and river drainage systems crisscrossing Kingston, St. Andrew, and Portmore in St. Catherine. A lot of the garbage flowing into the Kingston Harbour is from the Sandy Gully.
The Rio Cobre is also a very important contributor of solid waste into the Kingston Harbour. Other major gully systems, Jamaica, Barnes Gully, Jew Gully, these are all major contributors to Kingston Harbour because they empty into the Kingston Harbour. But again, it is not the outflow point that's the concern. It is where it's coming from upstream. You mentioned a while ago harbour-side communities. And I just give an example of a very easy one. Port Royal. Port Royal does not create the garbage that's choking Port Royal. I think we can establish that as a fact. So in the same way, communities on the northern shore of the harbour, Greenwich Town, for example, the garbage that affects the Greenwich Town community is not all coming from Greenwich Town. And that's a very important distinction.
Efforts on the way to reduce the amount of garbage that ends up in the Kingston Harbour include the ban on plastic bags and the recycling of plastic bottles.
When these are discarded in Manor Park, they end up in the Kingston Harbour. When these are discarded in Barbican, they end up in Kingston Harbour. Whether you throw it in a gully or on the roadside, it ends up in Kingston Harbour. Unless it's collected and deposited properly at Riverton City, it ends up in Kingston Harbour. Even if you throw it in your backyard, it stays in your backyard for a couple of weeks, eventually it will end up in Kingston Harbour. And that's what we have to be able to be very clear in understanding, that this is not just a Greenwich Town problem or Port Royal problem, it's everywhere. It's just a matter of time.
Not only having an adverse effect on the environment, it's also affecting commercial activity, investment opportunities, and public health.
A major container terminal at the Port of Kingston is affected by debris in the Kingston Harbour. We're talking about ship propellers that are going to be knotted up and hulls that are dinged by floating refrigerators that are causing damage to these ships. That's a cost, that's an economic cost, both in terms of real dollars as well as loss of productivity, delays in shipping and so on. The ability to attract investments and more ships to call on the Port of Kingston. That's direct, that's real dollars. You also talk about plans about the revitalization of downtown Kingston. You talk about new investments in corporate headquarters and bringing people back downtown. There are a myriad of projects that are slated in the downtown Kingston space. Millions of dollars are being spent on master plans and so on. These are threatened by the fact that part of the appeal of downtown Kingston is the Kingston Harbour. You talk about public health issues related to the Kingston Harbour, whether people are directly ingesting Kingston Harbour water or are nauseated by the smell. All of these things will be addressed by fixing the Kingston Harbour. And then you have the environment itself. There is money in the environment, direct and indirect. You're talking about the mangroves, you talk about fisheries, you talk about fishermen who rely on the viability of these environments in order for them to make their living. You talk about cruise shipping. Cruise shipping is different from container shipping in one very important regard. The appeal of a physical place to attract tourists to come here will depend on a pristine environment. And so we need to make sure that the environment is ready for them. You don't want to take them to Kingston Harbour and then to see all these the Ramsar protected mangrove wetlands and they're nauseated by a smell or they're just busy stepping over garbage than actually seeing a bird or a crab or whatever they want to look at. So those are the elements from an economic basis that the Kingston Harbour is more than just about a mangrove or fisheries area or so on. It's all related.
There are plans to restore the Kingston Harbour to its pristine state using the findings of the hydrodynamic modeling study conducted.
Policies, legislation, enforcement will also be very important. We're talking about anything ranging from enforcing existing litter laws, improving the capacity of the National Solid Waste Management Agency to not just collect, but collect frequently, collect capably without missing anything in between, reliably. Those are going to be important elements as well. But fundamentally, at the basis of all of this, we're really going to need an attitude change, a cultural change towards disposal, the generation of garbage, and ultimately the disposal and management of it. It is not somebody else's problem. It's your problem, it's my problem, it's all our problem at the same time.
Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
President of Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, will pay a state visit to Jamaica as special guest for the nation's 57th independence celebrations. The president will be accompanied by First Lady, Her Excellency Margaret Kenyatta, and an official delegation. They are scheduled to arrive in Jamaica on August 5. Prime Minister Andrew Holness will hold bilateral talks with President Kenyatta. The talks will focus on the development of a strategic partnership through trade, investment, and increased technical cooperation in areas such as tourism, education, sport, and culture. President Kenyatta will lay a floral tribute at the shrine of the country's first national hero, the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, at the National Heroes Park, after which he will also visit the Bob Marley Museum. The president is also expected to meet with the leader of the opposition. The president will depart the island on August 7. In regional news, house-to-house voter registration was to have begun on the weekend in Guyana to create a new voters list. However, the opposition People's Progressive Party, the PPP, staged a protest demanding that the registration process be cancelled.
The order to commence the registration process was signed by former chairman of GCOM, Justice Retired James Patterson, on June 11th. However, it was only published this week. At a massive protest on Friday, opposition leader Bar Jagdev continued his argument that the registration exercise is in defiance of the Constitution of Guyana and the Caribbean Court of Justice. He said he's hoping that the new chair of the Elections Commission will heed advice and stop the registration process.
We will ensure that when the new chairperson is in place, and we hope that we have a chairperson that will respect the ruling of the court, that this activity could easily morph back into claims and objections.
The opposition leader and President David Granger are currently engaged in an informal process to select the new chair of GCOM. The president has since found 4 persons who are not unacceptable to be included in the final list of 6 to be submitted to him. The opposition leader has submitted 4 additional names to be considered in the informal process by 2 teams representing the leaders. Meanwhile, Jagdeo threatened to file contempt of court proceedings against the Chief Elections Officer Kit Lowenfield for moving ahead with the registration process.
As a serious party, we will observe on the ground, field scrutineer for every activity. We're not going to be caught flat-footed. Our purpose is winning the elections whenever they're called, and the PPP is ready for that. Whenever they're called, we have to follow the process until it's stopped, but it's illegal now what Lowenfield is doing.
GECOM said the decision to hold the registration exercise is also in keeping with the decision of the Commission on 19th of February 2019. Upon conclusion of this exercise, a new National Register of Registrants database will be created. Subsequently, the official list of electors will be extracted for the purpose of conducting general and regional elections. GECOM said while the Commission is undertaking the registration exercise, concurrent operational activities for the preparations of general and regional elections are also underway.
And still in Guyana, opposition leader Bharat Jagdeo says he is disappointed with CARICOM's silence on the electoral issues taking place in Guyana, noting the regional body's credibility is at stake, especially as it relates to the respect for decisions taken by regional institutions.
I'm surprised I have not seen even a statement coming from CARICOM as yet, because this is a regional institution that we work to establish. And if the region cannot respect the decision of a superior court within that it created as an organ of regional integration, then the region would be found lacking. And we cannot be busy sending missions to Haiti when they have an interruption of constitutional rule, or Venezuela when they have a breakdown of democratic order. And here in Guyana, which is the headquarter state of CARICOM, ignore that you have a government now in office that is illegally there because elections ought to have been held since March 21st. And where the court has now ruled they must comply with the Constitution and they're a caretaker government, and ignore the fact that this government is not complying with the order of the court and just sit by and not say anything about it. I'm frankly speaking very, very disappointed in CARICOM.
And we go to sports. Jamaica's Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce stormed to victory in the 100 meters at the anniversary games at the London Stadium. The Jamaican double Olympic 100-meter champion crossed the line in 10.78 seconds. Britain's Diane Asher-Smith was second in 10.92 seconds. Meanwhile, Jamaica's Rochelle Clayton won the 400-meter hurdles in 54.16 seconds. West Indies A crashed to an 8-wicket defeat in the 5th and final one-day match of their series against visiting India A at the Coolidge Cricket Ground. West Indies A failed to bat out their 50 overs, only amassing 236 runs. Faced with the modest target, India A reached it with ease, getting to 237 for 2. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place, for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.